Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club Eagle Point Studios. Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, joins us now, brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant, where each Wednesday at 7:05 you can find him along with Coach Tom Allen for Inside Indiana Football. Don, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get carried away with any positives at this point. I mean, I'm going to sit here and say I'm just okay.
Yeah. I was looking at some of from over the weekend, and boy, some guys that stood out. Josh Henderson, sure would have liked to seen him get the ball more. Jalen Lucas, those guys are, man, just didn't happen enough, seems like.
Well, guys, I'm going to tell you something, and I've been railing on this morning on a couple of other shows, and I'm going to rail on it here too. We're missing DJ Matthews and we're missing Cam Camper, right? Two wide receivers that are dynamic in many respects. DJ Matthews, certainly one of your most dynamic players on your football team. And then we see another one that goes out there in 3 plays that sparks this team to a touchdown. And Jalen Lucas, a true freshman from Houma, Louisiana, who goes out there and breaks ankles on that 34-yard run. We know he can do that because he's also returned kicks a couple of times that were very impressive. One, was it against Idaho? I can't remember. He had a big return against somebody earlier this season. And he plays 3 plays, helps lead us to a touchdown, and we never see him again on the football field in that same role. I do not understand that. You're missing 2 of your most dynamic players in Camper and Matthews. Why are you not going to give, that kid a chance? And I've said this many times throughout my programs this morning, and you guys are the last group that I do, or, the last guys I work with on a Monday morning. I just don't get it. I mean, how in the world?
You're not the only one.
How do you not play a kid like that? I know he's a freshman, and I know that freshmen make mistakes. Well, if that's the case, then why are we playing seniors that make mistakes? Look, this kid's dynamic, and he has got tools, and we've seen it. We saw it in practices. I saw a little highlight of him playing in the 7-on-7 this summer. I mean, he broke everybody's ankles. He went up against. It was amazing how good he looked catching the ball, number one, and not just running it, but catching the ball and then making people miss. And we're not seeing him. And I'm sitting here going, with 2 of your best guys out and another guy that's capable of doing the things, maybe even a little more dynamic than the other 2, why is he not playing? And again, I don't get it.
You're not alone, Don. Like I said, along with Josh Henderson, he only gets 5 carries, averages 4.4 yards a carry in that first half. I don't even talk about Jalen Lucas's average because it's off the freaking charts at 13 with those 3 runs that he had in 39. But it was both cases. Sure would have loved to see both of those guys get the ball a lot more, and especially in the second half when it was critical, when Indiana needed something, right. Needed a spark, needed to get that. You're on the road and in an environment they're desperate for a win, as are you, but they're more desperate, and we saw who wanted that win, I think, is what ended up happening. But yeah, some of the decisions are really questionable.
Yeah, they are. And of course, in the second half, we needed somebody to come up and help this football team in the second half. And we had 83 offensive yards in the second half. We had 3 first downs. We had 1 of 8 third down conversions. You needed somebody to come out there and help this team. And he was not put on the field, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that he's the only guy. But honestly, at this point, you've got to use every tool that you have. And to have that kind of tool available and not use it, just a mistake. That's the nicest way I could put it.
And not only was this were there frustrations with some of the personnel decisions. I mean, this was a game in which Indiana couldn't do. They scored 21 points, and you look back at the stats, you almost scratching your head and saying, "How did they get that many points in this game?" I know they got a defensive touchdown, but 2 of 15 on third downs. You have 11 penalties for 92 yards. And the thing about it was, you look at Nebraska's other side, it wasn't all that much better. The offense is just struggling so much right now. And then I go back to, once again, the defensive secondary, which was supposed to be a strength, gives up a 71-yard touchdown pass late in that game. I don't know if it's because they're on the field too much. I don't know what the case is, but you look at some of the things you thought were going to be the strength of this team, and right now it's just not.
Well, that's the mystery here. I mean, the defensive backfield should be the strength of this ball club. I mean, those guys are all guys that have been around, are playing their 4th or 5th year of college football, have been starters from the beginning of their careers for the most part. If they haven't been starters, they played a ton. And they're making mistakes that you would not expect guys like them to make, simply because, I mean, that first series, the very first series that Nebraska scores on, it's a 3-play series. And I mean, we go 1, 2, 3 and out in our first series, and then they score in 3 plays. I mean, what is going on here? And this is not the first time it's happened. It happened last week as well. I mean, right now, this football team has got to start looking in the mirror a little bit, number one. And then number two, you got to fix an offensive line with whatever it's scheming or whatever you have to do to change things, because right now they can't run the football effectively, and they sure as heck can't protect the quarterback, not the way that they're playing right now. And that's even getting Zach Carpenter back, who didn't play the center position, which is where he's supposed to be at, but they put him in there because he's a better offensive blocker, supposedly, than anybody else that they have, and they move him into the left guard position so he can play, because obviously he can't snap the balls effectively with whatever he's wrapped up with in his right hand, which is his snapping hand, because of the injury that he had. So he's playing out of position to some degree, but at the same time, he's supposed to be one of your best blockers. And then you've got Katic playing the center position. Well, we didn't see any bad snaps from Katic for the most part. I mean, he did a good job in that regard. And I assume that he's a pretty good blocker, but we're still not being able to protect the quarterback. I mean, Connor Bazelak was 50% on the day, right? And he was basically the same the week before, because we can't protect him well enough. So it's an offensive line issue, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it's a factor in this football team right now, and I don't know how you fix it. And now you're going to go up against the number 4 team of the country as your next opponent. And unless you play some kind of perfect football, I don't see how you get it done.
No, confidence has got to be a problem now, especially for this Hoosier team after losing that game at Nebraska. And when you have Michigan coming in, who I still don't know if they're not the best team in the Big Ten yet or not. But they're going to put a definitive challenge onto Indiana, and with the defense playing the way it has been, it's scary. But it's fundamentals. Dylan, you mentioned Dustin, or rather, you mentioned the penalties, or it's just been a constant. They make critical mistakes at critical times. That's the problem, is they're making them at critical times, and it ruins drives. I've seen it week after week where a drive gets ruined, and this team just does not have the firepower to have that luxury to give up those kinds of drives. And it's just the fundamentals has really been disappointing on this team.
Well, and fundamentals are a key. There's no question about that. But the silly penalties are even a bigger problem, in my opinion. And that is basically discipline. It's a discipline issue. And trust me, I'm not sitting here saying that Tom Allen doesn't preach discipline and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about players understanding that you can't make those kinds of mistakes. And there are ways to keep from making those kinds of mistakes, and yet you're making them. So, and the only way to change that is sit down here. You're right here beside me. You're not going to play in the football game if you can't stop making silly mistakes. Anyway, I'm getting way off base here, but I say this. This football team is a better football team, in my opinion, than we have seen thus far this year. I don't think they played even close to their best football. And I don't know why that is. All I know is we haven't seen it at this point. They haven't played a full 60-minute game in any way, shape, or form. And right now, that's what they need. And they're going to have it this week if they're not going to be blown out of the stadium on Saturday.
And one of the things that I'm concerned with, if I'm an Indiana fan heading into this Michigan game and really for the rest of the season, is we saw this last year at one point. Tempers spilled over, and I don't remember the players who were involved with it, but there was some finger pointing. There was some high emotions on the sideline, and at times that's good. But I wonder now, too, as we talked about certain position groups, like I think the linebackers have played extremely well. I think Connor Bazelak does everything he can. I think the wide receivers, when they have time to get the ball, I think they can make some good things happen. I wonder about finger pointing among the players, because coming into this season, a lot of guys, Cam Jones said, I did not want to go out the way last season ended.
Right.
And boy, if you don't fix some things, you're not going to be 2-10, but there's a chance that you're 3-9 or 4-8. And that's not how anybody wants to go out at Indiana. So I feel like there could be some finger pointing at some point. If what you said, Don, if this team doesn't start to fix some things quick and start playing better football that we know they're capable of.
Yeah. And look, you don't have to beat Michigan to impress me, but you've got to challenge Michigan, and you've got to go out there and play with your hair on fire and compete like crazy. Exactly. Those are the kinds of things that Indiana fans want to see. Indiana fans are not expecting Indiana to blow out Michigan. They're not expecting maybe even for Indiana to win at this point, based on what we've seen. The expectation is play better, play harder, fix some of the mistakes that we're seeing on a consistent basis, block somebody, tackle somebody. Keep them away from making this ball game uninteresting, if you know what I mean. You don't need it right now. That's the expectation of Indiana fans, because look, Indiana fans have been putting up with bad football forever. I mean, and there's just no questioning that. And all they want to see is a competitive, tough, hard-nosed football team. And right now, we're not seeing that.
No, not at all. But it is going to be a big weekend on the Bloomington campus. Either way, Don, with Michigan coming in, but it's not just that. It's homecoming, but bigger than that, you've got Hoosier hysteria. So there's just going to be a ton of people on campus this weekend, and there's plenty to be excited for at least part of them.
And Fox Big Noon Kickoff is coming to town this week.
Yep. Fox does their big noon kickoff at the noon game. Of course, it's a noon kickoff with Michigan on Saturday. So a lot of things going on in and around the Bloomington campus this weekend, Don.
Yep, there's no question about that. There'll be excitement. There'll be excitement going into the contest. No question about that. We hope there's excitement when we come out of the contest, at least from the standpoint of a little pride being able to be justified for a change. That's right now, I think all anybody can ask for is a really competitive effort on Indiana's part. If they would pull off an upset, I mean, we would all be ecstatic. And next week we all be saying our mea culpas because we were so wrong. Well, yeah. I would love that. I would love to be so wrong, but right now I don't feel it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree 100%. The Hoosier hysteria coming up this Friday. Do you have no responsibilities for that, I'm assuming, right?
Oh, I have none whatsoever.
And I'm sure it could not be you couldn't even be any happier about that.
My partner, Rhett
that's
Lewis.
Right. That's
Rhett
right.
is actually going to be a co-host with an ESPN young lady.
Courtney Cronin, who is also an IU graduate.
Yep. She is an IU grad as well, and they are co-hosting Hoosier Hysteria on Friday night. That might get me excited just to see how they do.
Yep, looking forward to that. It was so funny though. I was chatting with Rhett about coming on for that. And he said, and I asked him if he had a contact info for Courtney. He's like, "Who's that?" And he's like,
"You may have exposed him. You may have exposed him."
I may not have gotten him the last name. I was just assuming that he's already been shoved all this information, but they've got, well, as I know, you all have so much each week that you can't get too far out. There's too much. So, but no, looking forward to it. It ought to be fun. It was a fun environment last year. So looking forward to what they're doing for the year 2 of the Mike Woodson era, but bringing in Isaiah Thomas last year was a very cool thing. Just wondering what they might do this year. Obviously, getting everyone out and excited and involved for the upcoming season.